And so things get tougher today in the milk dispute, and today the Dairy Board added their support to the employers, claiming an $8 million export deal has been lost. Well, what do the dairy workers earn and what do they want? The average gross wage of a dairy worker before tax is $24,500 plus shift allowances. The lowest paid are on about 17, the highest about 32,000. Hardly Malcolm Forbes country. The workers want a basic increase of 8.25%, which would push the average dairy worker's wage to $26,580, give or take a few extras. Well, the workers say they deserve the money because of their increased productivity, because of a 7% inflation figure, and because the car cockies have done well for the past 3 years. Now, the union says all their claim is going to cost the industry is $3 to $4 million. And the massive millions of export dollars the bosses say they've lost today alone would have more than covered that. Well, John Murdoch is the employers' advocate. A very good evening to you.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming up, especially for this. And Mr. Ray Potroz, you're the Dairy Workers' Secretary.
Good evening.
Thank you also for coming. Mr. Murdoch, the union wants $3 to $4 million. That's the total. You're pouring millions of dollars down the drain deliberately. You're suspending workers for even meeting to discuss the issue. Isn't this a classic case of cutting off your nose to spite your face?
No, we don't believe so, Paul. The issue here isn't the dollars and cents. It's not the difference between the employer's offer and the union's claim.
Well, what is the issue?
What is now at issue here is the technique, the style of bargaining that the union has adopted this year and last year in their wage negotiations. What we've faced constantly from the union is the threat that they will spill our milk, they will cost us millions of dollars if we don't give them what they want. No reason, no logic, just the simple threat that that's the approach they're going to take. And we've told them right throughout the council and prior to the council that if they spilt milk, we would make no further offers.
Yeah, but hang on, if they have industrial action, milk's going to get spilt, isn't it? Because milk doesn't keep, does it?
That's right.
Mr. Potroz, you've got a comment on this argument.
Well, it's been our policy all the time, and John's very much aware of it, and we've tried to articulate it as publicly as we can. The dairy workers' policy and all the notices and all the strike action is designed not to spill milk. What we're endeavouring to do is get all the milk picked up off the farms, process it, and in the course of doing that, it's to increase the cost of to the industry by slightly more than what we're asking for in the wage increase. That's our policy, and that's what we've been trying to do.
Mind you, the union's hardly whiter than white, is it? I mean, that dispute last year, that picking that whinging of the union last year that went on for about 6 weeks is surely to blame for this incredible hard line the employers are taking now.
Well, the workers in this country have the legal right to go on strike during the award negotiations. Now, we have done everything legally right. The employers are now saying that while the workers may have the legal right to do it, they're not going to be able to do it anyway in practice.
What about that, Mr. Murdoch? I mean, take this again, whinging from the employers today about the $8 million order to the Soviet Union lost. In fact, the workers were quite prepared to load out that order, but they all took their tea break together, which in the employers' view constituted some action they weren't going to tolerate, and so the $8 million order went down the drain. You brought that upon yourselves.
The loss of orders is a result of the
Now, what about the $8 million order?
That is not the issue. That is not the issue. We are prepared as an industry to sustain those costs, because what we're fighting for here is the long-term future of this industry and its continued existence to compete on international marketplaces. We believe we are facing a direct threat to our future.
8% is what they're asking for. At the moment, the average wage watch is just over $20,000.
It is not the money, it is the perception that by going on strike, by threatening industrial action, by costing us money, that will force the wage offers up again and again. Now, that's what happened last year,
right,
and they got away with it. That's what they're trying this year.
Yes, but with respect, this is 19th century employers' attitude, isn't it? How else are the workers going to get an increase? Are they going to go along and are you going to give it to them?
Reason and logic is what gets wage increases, not industrial muscle. We went through 7 days of conciliation, informal talks, formal talks, right to the wire on Friday with industrial action hanging around our ears, and the union hadn't changed their position one iota. They had a full log of claims on the table equaling 18%. Now,
yes, but what it's all very we can start talking figures, and we'll have the whole nation turning the televisions off, won't we? But I mean, in the end, if the union can't withdraw its labour, what other sanction does it have?
That's what the union has done.
Mr. Potroz.
I'd like to take John up on the question of the 7 days of negotiations. We spent, first of all, the employers refused to come to the first round of talks on the 5th, 6th and 7th of September. They actually cancelled out. The next 2 rounds of talks, in which there were 6 days set aside, we actually never talked about any of the issues, any of the claims at all. The employers sidetracked the whole discussions and negotiations into a side argument, which in fact turned out to be legally impractical for them to carry out.
All right, is there any room for compromise? Any room? You're saying, what, 6.25, you want just over 8%. Is there room for compromise?
Nothing has changed since Friday except the spillage of milk, and that's not going to promote a change in our position.
There is no compromise?
No.
From our point of view, our 8.25% is negotiable. We asked you, and I asked you on this medium to come back to the negotiating table, so we can actually finish negotiations.
In fact, we left the talks on Friday with the union at 11%.
No,
it's
all right,
interesting to hear the union have dropped
No, you
their
didn't.
claim.
You didn't come back to the table, John. You walked away.
All right, now just a minute, we're saying the union now is saying 8.25 is negotiable. That's news to you?
That is news to me.
Is it hopeful news? Is it optimistic news?
It's news to me.
John, if you were to come back to the table for us to make the offer to you, it wouldn't have been news to you. You refused to come back.
When the talks were adjourned on Friday, they were at 11%.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
Is this comment from the union that the 8% is negotiable is going to bring you back to the table?
To negotiate? Mm-hmm. No.
If you thought our position was 11%, John, and I'm now saying it's 8.25% and negotiable, that's a major change from our point then.
We have advised you prior to council, and I'm advising you now. You've spilt milk. We told you if you spilt milk and used industrial thuggery, we would not make further negotiations.
We did not spill milk.
Just a minute, Mr. Murdoch, one at a time, yes.
We did not spill milk. You people deliberately suspended workers, so there was no other choice.
It was the workers' choice to take industrial rate.
That's their right. That's their legal right.
It's their legal right. They spilt milk as a result.
Yeah, so they took industrial action, and of course it's an industry involving milk, and so milk got spilt, Mr.
That's
Murdoch.
right. That's right, and we've
so
told
they can't take industrial action.
We've told you that is not the method, that is not the technique to achieve the goal that you're aiming for.
Mr. Potroz, when you think about it, look, for God's sake, you're being offered 6%. Now, what's wrong with 6%? These are hard times. The industry's been through a hell of a time. What's wrong with 6%?
Well, first of all, it's not hard times for the dairy industry. They're into their 3rd very profitable year now, and the dairy workers would at least expect them to match the rate of inflation, so that they're not any worse off as far as inflation is concerned. The industry is now predicting a 20% increase on last year's 50%, which was on top of an all-time record. $4 million, John, to settle this dispute, and you're wasting $20 million a day.
Well, there is the principle that I've already highlighted, but in reply to the claim about how well the dairy industry is doing, dairy workers have never been asked to take a reduction. Farmers have. Farmers have had a hard time.
So, look, I've got to wind this up, but so we have a new offer there. Are you going to think about it?
In terms of making a compromise, no.
Mr. Ray Potroz of the Workers' Union. Well, Mr. Ray Potroz of the Workers' Union and Mr. John Murdoch, thank you both very much. The All Blacks are off in Wales playing hard and, well, possibly playing hard.